Bruce DuMont back in Chicago, welcoming to the Beyond the Beltway Network and those listening on WIND in Chicago. This may be of special news to you, but the Illinois State Senate President John Cullerton has announced that he will be stepping down. That was several weeks ago, and there was going to be a battle to see who replaces him. And Don Harmon, who's the Democratic committeeman of Oak Park Township, longtime member of the Illinois State Senate, is now the Senate President-elect of Illinois. So that's a big story for those listening in Illinois, and for those listening in Wyoming, it means nothing. And speaking of Wyoming, let's go to Josh in Gillett, Wyoming. Where is Gillett, Wyoming, Josh?
It's Gillette, Wyoming.
Gillette, Wyoming. Okay, where is that?
It's by Devil's Tower.
Oh,
By
I've been
Devil's
there.
Tower.
I've been
Okay.
there.
What brings you, by the way, you're listening to us on Sirius XM satellite radio, so nice to hear from you this evening. What do you bring to our discussion?
Oh, just with all the impeachment nonsense, and I only call it nonsense because over the last 4 years, there's been a constant wailing and gnashing of teeth, and Russiagate, which turned out nothing. And all of a sudden, we have to take this entirely seriously. If there was even a grain of truth with any of this, and there could be, how do we take this seriously as voters? I didn't vote for Donald Trump, but the media has pushed me and people like me to vote for him. And that's really all I have to say.
Well, stay on the line for just a second, because I want to get everybody's reaction to not only what you have said, but something that I have had heard that has been said to me by Republican guests on this program. They did not vote for Donald Trump. And a lot of people that we've had on are Republicans, but they did not vote for Donald Trump in 2016. They voted for Gary Johnson for the most part. No Republican that I know of voted for Hillary, but these are Gary Johnson people, and these are people that if you saw them pop up on the screen, you'd recognize them. They have all said to me that they're going to vote for Donald Trump this time, including people who have said they detest Donald Trump. They just cannot stand the man. They don't like his personality. They don't like the way he demeans people. But they're going to vote for him because of positions and also because of what you have just said. They think that he's been beaten up by from day one by the national news media. And I think these are anecdotal stories. But I think there's a lot to be said for people that are sitting home. When I watch these network newscasts and I see the horrendous way in which they treat the president, certainly very unfairly and constantly beating and badgering him, I also think there's a lot of people out there like you, Josh, in Gillette, Wyoming, that are looking back at their TV sets and say, this guy's getting trashed and I'm going to vote for him now.
Well, it's not even the news, it's social media.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife and I are college educated. We both voted for Gary Johnson. We're both going to vote for Trump. I mean, Hillary Clinton, she said she was going to take jobs away. She was going to put coal industry in the ground and keep it there. That's the first time I've ever heard a presidential candidate say they were going to take away jobs.
Yeah.
And
well, Joe Biden said it last week.
I know. You know, even hard Democrats like my mom, JFK Democrats, she doesn't have a dog in the fight, and she doesn't know who she's going to vote for. She's not going to vote for Trump. I know that. But she might just stay home. And that's the thing Democrats have to be worried about. Their party has been decimated by their own hubris.
Phil Beverly, you're a political scientist, so what's your reaction to what Josh has to say?
I want to thank Josh for the hubris comment, because I think Hillary's candidacy was sort of the height of hubris, believing it was her turn, as it were. And the party, I don't think, got it. Just like I would compare the Democrats in 2016 to the Republicans in 2012. Oh, yeah, we get it. We had this postmortem. We understand why we lost, and we'll do better, and it'll be better next time. And they really didn't. because the mainstream Republican Party has been sidelined by a more populist Republican Party, and I'm wondering if the same is going to happen with Democrats. I don't see that candidate, that sort of complete candidate in the field right now. Maybe one will emerge after the first few primaries.
I would actually argue respectfully that it's the opposite phenomenon, right? Is that the woke primary is what's doing in the Democrat Party, right? And the idea that Twitter is real life, which it's not, and that they only need to care about what the Twitter sphere says from an issues perspective, turns off people like Josh and his mom.
Yeah, I have often said, because I do watch these Democrat debates, and I sit there and I watch them, and you hear the people in the audience applaud, and the candidates look at themselves, and they feel really good, and they get energized by that crowd. And then I think to myself, you have to bring this into the general election. This isn't about the primary. And it's amazing. It's the same thing with this impeachment. Okay, this isn't about, right now it's about the primary because it is. Right. It's for their base. But there's something that is beyond the primary, and it's getting completely lost. And people like this caller are not going to forget it. They are going to remember, and we are going to have a general election. And how is this all going to play out for the Democrats? And I would argue, and I think that you would too, Jeff, that this is going to have some consequences that they're not going to like.
I would say that there's going to be consequences on both sides. I'm not convinced.
I would agree.
I'm not convinced that suddenly there's going to be some great Republican uprising to support Donald Trump. I think there are people on the Republican side who are tired of the guy's shenanigans and his diminishment of the office of the president. And there's Democrats who are tired of having sort of same old Democrats that we always sort of get. And I think it's which side is going to stay home in greater numbers.
Well, I think there's a large swath of voters that I would call Trump skeptical. People perhaps like Josh who didn't vote for him originally, but he's been better than he possibly could have hoped for. I know that I was a Fiorina delegate in the 2016 election, and Trump was probably my 12th choice out of 17. But once he was the nominee, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna roll the dice here and see what happens. And he's been better than I could have possibly imagined. The fact that the Dow just went to 29,000.
But here's the thing about that is most people don't have any stake in that game. So when we talk about economic, hold on, no,
okay.
What's stake in what game? What's stake in what game?
Most people don't have any form of money or savings or they don't have IRAs, they don't have money in the stock market. So when we look at the economy and we talk about the American economy is doing so great.
Based on what?
Based on literal, people don't even have the $1,000 in the bank account right now. Like most of the country.
Our savings rate is
unemployment
the lowest
rate
in the
is
world.
at 3.9%.
But again,
what are wages at?
But wages have actually grown in all of the segments.
The stock market is made up
median
of
income
people.
is high.
That's
Is up
right.
8%.
The stock market is made up of shares of companies.
Yeah, but that's
These are not
retirement accounts.
But most people don't have that, right?
50% of American households
less than
do.
50%.
Less than 50%.
Way less than 50%.
Less
do.
than 50%.
And when we're talking about unemployment numbers, the reason why people are rolled into that number, we have this gig economy. So those people that are, they're underemployed, they look like they have jobs, but they really don't. These aren't good jobs. So it's great to have a low unemployment number. What is the quality of the employment?
We
that
hear
we
that
have?
argument about the health care. It's not quality health care. People aren't happy about it. They're not quality jobs. People aren't happy with
I
them.
thought
Come on.
everything-
It's a real
Us,
thing.
folks. 1-800-723-8289. More calls when we come back.
A new
We're back on the air, and Jennifer Nevins, you want to make a comment about evangelicals.
We were just discussing this during the break. Our breaks usually are very
Animated.
Animated. Yeah, they've been pretty calm until this last one. We were talking about the subject of evangelicals and Trump and how evangelicals support him in spite of him paying off a porn star and so on and so forth, and how Trump's character is so lousy. There's so many misperceptions about this. First of all, Christians themselves and evangelicals, I posit that Trump could be an evangelical. People say, what are you talking about? He does X, Y, and Z. Christians are not perfect. They are some of the most flawed individuals. We all have flaws. If people read their Bibles, they will see that God used a jackass in the Bible. God used King David, people who were very, very flawed. Paul was a murderer. Okay, so it's a false argument to say that evangelicals cannot support a president who does not act like a choir boy, because it doesn't align with Scripture and it doesn't align with our personal experience, quite frankly. So I guess I just want to poke a hole in that, because it drives me absolutely crazy when I hear people say, "How can you support somebody who sins or does X, Y, and Z?" Because we all have, to one extent or another, been there.
Let's go to Joe in Island Lake, Illinois, watching on YouTube.
Hi,
Are you there?
how are you? Yes, I'm here, and thank you very much for taking my call. This is my first time on here.
Very good. Welcome.
Real quick and to the point. Three things I know for sure. One is that President Trump will be acquitted by the Senate. Number two, President Trump will win in a landslide. Number three, Pelosi's going to lose control of the House because it's going to revert back to the Republicans. And this is all just like the socialist plan. Nancy Pelosi took the bait and she stepped right into that trap. They need her out of the way.
All right, let's get reaction from Phil Beverly to any one of the 3 points you've made.
Yeah, I gotta disagree with the landslide. This is a president who's never gotten more than 50% popularity in the country, and if he wins, it's much like winning in 2016, close votes in a few states.
Yeah, I don't know that there's some socialist plan. I kind of have an idea of why you're saying that, but I think that just voters are changing their minds as to who they want to govern them, and I think Nancy Pelosi's run will end naturally, as many other elected officials' runs end naturally. Yeah.
If there's,
What does it mean though? Like, what are you predicting?
Well, I don't. I mean, kind of along his lines. I'm pretty sure he won't be convicted in the Senate. I don't believe he'll be reelected. I believe Bernie Sanders has a legitimate shot to be elected as president.
Oh, Jesus.
And Jesus may come back when he gets elected. I've heard that say, the end of times is coming.
That was a very good. I would
Okay.
have to say kind of a crude comment
no, I really
there.
do. I really do.
To
So
be perfectly honest with you, I definitely want Bernie Sanders to be the Democrat nominee.
I do too.
Simple reason being is that I want a true argument across America with the American voter to see what a socialist is and what a true capitalist.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't
I agree
wanna
with Joe.
see a Democrat.
I'll agree with you on that too,
don't
Joe.
wanna
I'd like to see that.
I don't want to see a Democrat claiming to be capitalist, yet at the same time, back everything that is socialist. Let's get a real argument out there in front of America.
Yes, I mean, yeah. So because honestly, I think it'll be a real enlightenment to a lot of people to understand that we already mostly live in a social democracy, although our representation is kind of contrary to that because they're bought and paid for by a lot of big money donors and corporations and things. So
Joe, listen, thanks very much for your call. Let's go to Sam in Austin, Texas. Go ahead. Sam, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Line 3 and KLBJ. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to take issue with the concept of popularity. It seems to have grown when MTV came around and image became associated with everything, and then of course mass media nowadays. It's a great mistake to think that popularity is going to lead to success. We're so consumed with image more than ever. And I believe that Trump is in office because he's willing to be unpopular, because a lot of the things, the hard realities of life and the things that need to be put down on paper as the rules of the way we live, they're not quite that pleasant, and they're not as giving and loving as the Democrats want to think that the world should be. So the Democrats are whenever they had to stoop so low to defend Bill Clinton, they really, really would do anything and lie about anything and play any sort of image game that they could play to gain popularity, and that's the circumstance we have in modern day politics.
No, I think that's a good point. I agree with you. I don't think he cares. When he says things, he doesn't. He doesn't market
This
test
is why we
anything.
need to repeal the 17th Amendment.
a certain irony though to that this is a guy who became famous in some measure because of reality TV, which is based on ratings and popularity. I mean,
Trump didn't get elected because he was famous. He got elected because he called the media out. The first time I started to like Trump was when he told the cameras to turn around to show the size of the crowd, and he said, "They're not turning around all the way. They're not turning around, are they?" He was right. They weren't. And when
Sam, they weren't, and I agree with you. He's focused on the media, and he understands that the media is probably the least popular institution in the country. He discovered that long ago, but I disagree with you that he didn't get elected because he was famous. He was famous, which gave him access to media, and the other thing that people saw for about 18 years on television, they would tune in every week. They would watch a series of people try to get a job accomplished, and Donald Trump at the end of each show would go through, assess the success or failures of these people, and to most of them he would say, "You're fired." He held everybody, he was accountable, he held everyone accountable, and I think after 17, 18 years of having a persona like that, that's exactly how he's been as president. Look what he does with his staff. He hires them, he fires them. I mean, they're in, they're out. I mean, it's like a continuation of The Apprentice.
I think that
He is a demanding guy. He's an egomaniac, and I say that in a kind way. He's an egomaniac who has great confidence in himself, and it turns a lot of people off. As some people, they detest him, but as long as he's doing what he says he's going to do, which he's done, I think he's on the road to re-election, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion at the moment. There's still a lot of
Bruce,
people out there.
18 years of popularity on a stupid TV show, which I never watched.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with what he said for 1 year and what he called out. And look, we finally had. There's not one Republican or Democrat out there that would get elected to the office of the President of the United States and call out all the raw deals America's getting on our trade policy.
You're right.
It goes all the way back to the Civil War.
Well,
You're right. You're right about that.
Well,
He said it was.
Bernie Sanders called out bad trade deals. He's always done that.
Yes.
So there are people.
Yeah, there were two people.
Yeah, and Bernie
doing it.
Sanders wants to give everybody everything. That's a stupid idea.
Yeah.
It's as plain and simple as Democrats are being stupid. And all they care
And
about is
Republicans
the
are being
caller-
disingenuous. And where do we
And
stop having
Republicans are
these
being-
conversations this
Republicans
way?
have been
Come on,
limp
Sam,
for
help
the
me out
past
here. Where do
6
we
years.
stop with the name calling and have a legitimate conversation? Oh, Democrats are stupid. Oh, Republicans are stupid. Let's knock that off, man.
No.
Let's knock that off.
No, look, I'm talking about politicians being stupid. Look at our debt. If
Yeah,
you don't think
exactly.
we've been doing
And what did we
stupid
do?
things
We
for the
cut
past
taxes
40
for
years,
the
then
largest
that's
earners,
cool.
for
We
the
cut
largest
taxes,
corporations.
And when did that happen? When
So
did
we
we
can
go
give-
from $5
Yeah.
trillion national debt
Yeah.
to $17
And then
trillion
we just
under
bloated the defense
Republicans?
budget.
Come on.
We give stuff away all the time. It's just never to ourselves. You and I are the ones paying taxes, are we not? Yet we're not allowed to expect things in return. But we know what happens is these bailouts go to banks, corporations get tax breaks. The largest earners in our country are allowed to have tax havens overseas. Like, I don't understand how that is normal. But when we're like, yo, can we have healthcare? Can we have education that's not overly priced? Like, these things are just so far off in the left, as people would say,
Right.
that
Sam,
they're just
last word to
unattainable.
you. Sam, last word to you. Go ahead.
I want to say, look, in terms of rights and health care and what we Americans should have, I contend that health care is a right, but health care is your choices you make daily. Medical care is what you do when you go to the doctor, you go to the hospital, and you need to get aid or you need to get medicine. And we're confusing the two things. Americans are overweight. There's tons of Twinkies and Oreo cookies in every store, and everybody's buying it up. And we want to build a grand system. Marianne Williams had it right. We have a sickness problem, not a health care
Yeah,
problem.
I agree with that. I agree
She
with
was
that.
right.
Well,
I agree with that.
I would like to hit on what
All
you
over the place.
said
We have sick
about
care, yeah.
healthcare. Why can't we have healthcare? Why can't we have this? Why can't we have that? Along with that comes government control, and
Yeah.
that is something a lot of us are don't want anything to do with. We're going to dictate your choices for you. We're going to tell you what doctor you can go to and
But they're
what
not gonna tell you
providers you
that.
can have. They do.
I've just never
government,
But
they're sort of doing
government-
that to me
a
now.
government
But some of the
program. You guys want government
yeah,
programs.
I do, actually.
And I
Because
absolutely
the government
do
program
not
saved my
want-
life. That's
okay.
why I'm familiar with that program.
I'm
and
not
it
talking
works.
about the VA. I'm not talking any
Right,
of
but-
that. I'm
okay,
talking
Medicare
about
has already
I am
saved thousands of
talking
lives
about
as well.
socialized medicine, and most Americans, including a lot of union members, do not want their health care choices restricted in that way.
Well, a lot of unions are backing Bernie Sanders right now because he's standing with workers who these people have
Not the
nothing
trades.
that they
Not the
have
trades.
been told that they were going to be getting.
Okay. I'm
to
not
include
talking about the
healthy
SEIU.
wages
I'm not
and
talking
a
about
robust
those
meth-
unions.
uh,
I'm
medical
Talking.
healthcare
I'm
system.
talking about trades unions. I come from a family of trade unionists. They are not wanting their health care contracts that they worked very hard to get decimated. They want those plans that they fought
Sam,
for.
Sam, thanks very much for your call from Austin, Texas. I'm Bruce DuMont, back shortly from Chicago. Bruce DuMont back in Chicago. I want to go back for just a moment to the beginning of the broadcast and our discussion of the impeachment and the trial of the president, which starts on Tuesday. It'll be on all the networks. And there's one of the stories that's coming out today, this allegedly something that Senator McConnell wants to do, and that is to give each side 12 hours to make their case, 2 days of 12 hours each. And then the Republicans would have an opportunity for 12 hours. Do you like the idea of a 12-hour session of Congress, of the Senate? Is that a good idea to get it over with, 12 hours back to back, Phil Beverly?
I think 12 hours is actually pretty long, considering it's a foregone conclusion what the outcome is. Let's wrap this thing up. This is sort of a waste of time.
12 hours. Is that does that give the Democrats enough time to make their case? Two back-to-back days of 12 hours each.
Yeah, they're not going.
We're talking 24 hours here, right?
Huh?
We're talking each side or
24 hours. Each side gets 24 hours,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And that's it, just 24 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know. What does precedent say? What was it during Clinton? What, did
It
they have
was- it
12
was-
hours? Or
no,
was it
no, they
8-hour
had-
normal days? or-
There were normal days at that point.
I don't know. I mean, again, they're the ones going through this proceeding. So if it's something that they all can come to a consensus on and they want to do 12 hours, then yes.
Well, supposedly that's what Mitch McConnell wants. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's a little weird. I mean, if you want a bunch of eyeballs watching you on television, they're not going to sit there for 12 hours. People are going to tune out.
Maybe you
so
don't
maybe
wa-
that's the
maybe you-
idea,
Yeah,
right?
the-
Maybe the
that is the
idea
idea.
is just
There
to
you go.
right.
You
That could
don't
be, that
want
could be part of his
eyeballs.
plan. People just get bored out of their minds and they
Yeah.
turn it off.
Well, the media cycle.
What do you think?
So-
I mean, I'd be interested because the Senate is supposedly adopting the same rules that was under which the
No,
Clinton.
there's going to be some exceptions, and
okay,
this might
this
be
is
one
one.
of the
This is a
exceptions.
potential
And again,
exception.
this has been rumored throughout the day, reported throughout the day. It is not fact. It allegedly is one of the things in the rules of the Senate that Mitch McConnell wants to put forward. But when I first heard this, the first thing I thought about is, again, eyeballs tuning out. 12
Yeah.
hours.
I-
Who's going to sit through
Nobody.
12 hours? And the other point is,
Well-
when you look at how the news media will cover each story. If it was 4 days of or let's say 3 or 4 days of 3 or 4 hours each, there would be 4 nights where you'd be focusing
Right.
on what took place in
And-
those 4 hours. When you're trying to put a newscast summarizing what happened in 12 hours,
Yeah.
it's going to be pretty tough to
Right.
really make your case, whatever you think the case should be.
I'd be interested to know if it's actually like 12 hours, like uninterrupted sessions,
Well, they
because I
definitely
would think it would be more likely to be what you described, Bruce, where it's okay, it's 12 hours total, split across, a week or 2
Aw.
weeks, right?
I think it was because even Ted Cruz was talking about it earlier today. He was saying like in one day, like a day
Yeah.
of 12 hours worth of.
I mean,
It's 12 hours, but then also Ted Cruz has been saying if the Democrats are going to get their witnesses, the Republicans are going to get their witnesses.
and of course,
Sure.
That's where-
And
that-
I would think
that's-
that if the goal is to get to the bottom of this and not have it be a media circus, that would make a ton of sense.
How about to get it over quickly?
Like 2 weeks
I mean,
is what I've heard.
I think I think Warren and Sanders want it over quickly because
Yeah,
they
of
have to
course.
be in attendance, and this is like critical time.
Yeah, but they're not. But they're not the key. They're not the key deciders here. The key decider is going to be Mitch McConnell. Does he want it over quickly or not?
Right, but they don't want to be tied up in a trial.
mean,
Sanders and Warren
attendance
keeps
is
them off the
compulsory.
campaign trail.
But again, they have no input on this.
I know they don't, but they have to
no
sit
input.
in on the trial, though.
Well, I know, but that's
they
as
don't
you
wanna-
suggested earlier. That's
It-
maybe one of the reasons why Nancy Pelosi wanted them, along
Off
with
the
Amy
trail.
Klobuchar and Michael
agree with
Bennett,
that.
way
Yeah, I
down
think
in
it's a-
Washington.
and Cory
Michael
Booker
Bennett.
at the time, and even
Huh.
Kamala Harris when
Yeah, but
when she-
they're
well, obviously they're all-
yesterday's news, so
right.
they're not relevant. But the point is, you want to keep them. I mean, I think there's been too much discussion about who is off the trail and has to sit there and
With no
And
phones and
do
all this
their
stuff.
job.
There's no
iPads.
precedent here,
They
right?
have to
That's
do
the
their
challenge,
job.
right? Is that before Clinton was impeached, you have to go back to the Reconstruction era when Andrew Johnson was impeached to find any other instances.
no
so
calls then.
so we're in completely uncharted territory here with regards to what's proper and what's not
Yeah.
outside what Mitch McConnell can convince 51 senators to do.
that's right. And the question is he going to convince all of his Republicans? And the question is, there's those 5 Republicans who are probably going to stand up because
What's the
historically,
upside?
Republicans are more likely to
You
go
know,
against their party than Democrats.
So
are.
here's the thing, right? And it's always the Republicans need to vote with the Democrats for the good of the country, or whatever argument,
Always.
right? It's never the Democrats have to vote
Right.
with the Republicans for the
Never.
good of the country. So what is the upside for Susan Collins, who's running for re-election in Maine,
She's gonna lose.
to abandon her
She's
party?
going to lose.
You're putting a marker down that Susan
She's
Collins
going to
should-
lose regardless of what she does. She's
She
going to lose.
She loses.
Okay,
She
so
loses.
she's going to lose anyway.
She lost on the Kavanaugh vote. She's a goner.
Right. She's already gone.
Actually,
You're right.
I don't know.
No, I don't think people
She's
even
done.
remember that now.
I don't know.
Oh, I
I'm
think
not.
Yeah.
I'm
I
not
think-
back up then, right?
That's
During the
Maine.
campaign.
Democrats in Maine remember
Maine.
that.
Maine.
But
going
again,
to
Bruce,
beat
what is
up.
the
I'll get on her
upside?
side, on
What
her
is the
side.
I'd say
upside for
she's a
any
goner.
Republican senator to be a useful idiot to the Democrats? What is the upside?
Cory Gardner could get reelected, but they're doing it for
By-
their own. They're doing it. They're
This-
doing it
this is like
because
the
they
Bruce
think it's
Rauner
going to help
argument.
them.
This is like the Bruce Rauner argument, where he can abandon his base
Right.
and somehow eke
That's
out
right.
How do
something
you
in
win?
the middle.
You don't win.
When the Democrats are going to vote against them anyway.
Politicians always do stupid
Right.
things. Let's go to Andy
So you
in
agree it's
Chicago.
stupid?
Quote of the night.
Listening. Oh, no, I do think it's stupid. I
Okay.
do think it's
All
stupid.
right.
But that doesn't mean it's not going to get done. Andy in Chicago,
enough.
go ahead.
1-0.
Hi, Bruce. Thanks for taking my call. I want to bring up a couple of points that
Yeah.
keep getting repeated, and I never hear people refute them. This thought that Donald Trump is the one that's lowered the dignity of the office, that started way a long time ago.
How
We
about
voted-
when Bill Clinton was getting a blowjob in the White
Stop
House?
it.
My God.
Can you get much
Okay, so-
lower than that?
Right.
Pardon my.
Right.
Woodrow Wilson,
Richard Nixon?
Woodrow Wilson resegregating the federal service is worse than any of that. Woodrow Wilson was the
Okay.
worst
But that's
president
not a
in the country.
commonly.
Okay, go ahead, Andy.
Right. Okay, but I was going to bring up the Bill Clinton, but Bill Clinton was an effective policymaker who paid attention to what the country wanted.
Swear.
He got decimated in the midterms, and he went hard center, and then had a successful second term, right?
Yeah.
And then we go along and we elect Barack Obama, who may be a wonderful guy, a great husband and father, but was wholly unprepared to be the chief executive of the United States.
Okay.
I mean, this guy came in with no qualifications to do that job.
But the
right?
American people
then-
gave him the qualifications, and they voted
Sure,
for
they
him
did.
twice.
Right. It was
Twice.
a popularity contest, and then we reelect him over a guy with an impeccable executive resume,
Yeah.
right? Who may be a weaker candidate. Okay, so now we've gone on that bargain of Bill Clinton, character doesn't matter, Barack Obama, executive experience doesn't matter. So now we elect Donald Trump. This guy has managed to be strong internationally while being one of the most anti-war presidents I've seen in my lifetime. This guy clearly does not want war. I mean, he's a commercial real estate guy. The worst thing for commercial real estate is war. I mean, this guy has really pulled off quite a trick in being able to do that.
Right.
so
He's
far.
been less hawkish than the previous Republican administrations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and also we should mention Republican primary voters wanted that type of person. They did not want a continuation of muscular Republican and bipartisan foreign policy. American people didn't want that. They didn't think John McCain was a hero. They didn't like it. Think of all the things that Donald Trump said, and the primary voters still voted for him, and he won.
Right.
And
So then, now,
what's
there's
been
a
the
second
cost?
There's a second unrelated point that I want to bring up.
Okay.
This talk about how the stock market only benefits the rich who have money in the stock market is completely false.
Yes.
That's not
People
true.
work for companies.
That's not true, man.
I
That's
don't
false.
work
That's
for a
true.
company,
It's not.
and so
Let
the stock
man-
market doesn't
let
doesn't.
the man make his point. Go ahead,
Sorry,
Andy.
sir.
Companies create jobs. The government does not create great jobs. The government, the biggest hire, they hire military guys, right? That's not great pay. It's a great
I'm
job.
aware.
but
I'm
it's not
definitely
great
aware of
pay.
that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay.
Been there.
Companies create jobs. A healthy stock market contributes to capital formation where companies can get capital and grow. That grows the economy. That keeps the economy healthy.
Yeah, but what happens as soon as
I don't care. I don't have a dime in the stock market. I don't care if it goes to. I'd
As
rather
do
it go
most
to
Americans.
50,000 because someone else. I don't need someone else to do poorly for me to do well.
Thank you.
Right.
Yes.
No, and that's fine.
Absolutely
No,
true.
and that's fine, which is always ironic when people who have the most resources are always like against sharing them in some fashion that they're just not accustomed to. And the assertion that companies create jobs, yeah, like literally as companies grow, they create jobs. But again, we're talking about the quality of jobs. When the average income in the United States is roughly $43,000, are you telling me that is a good job? Like that is enough for people to live on? What creates a robust
I'd like to ask you what kind of companies create the most jobs? What do you think?
Well, all kinds of companies create jobs. It's not what companies
Small
create the
businesses
most
create
jobs.
the most.
And what happens
Small
when the
businesses create the
and
bulk
when-
of
and when-
jobs in this country.
and when you want to talk
All the
about
guys
large
that work in
companies,
my small business
Let him go.
have been getting raises for the past 5 years.
Okay.
Because the economy is so strong.
Okay, now
And I
Derek.
wanna-
D-
yeah,
Derek's
but those
turn.
raises were forced by certain things like minimum wage law in action, like that. Like you're talking about earning more income. Like we have to raise the minimum wage because the best labor, to business people, the best labor costs $0 because their bottom line is the only thing that matters. It's stakeholder versus shareholder theory. And when you look at shareholder theory, the only thing that corporations are indebted to are to make more money to the shareholders. And what happens as soon as those share prices start dropping and the company, because of the decisions made by people that earn $33 million a year, when that company starts going under, people lose jobs. So corporations, as much as they create them, they're really quick to just tell you to go away when they can't afford to pay you anymore.
We've got to pause. Thanks for your call. 1-800-723-8289. When we come back, one more segment. Don't go away.